my name is Randy Kroll, and I actually chose to do my research over meeting the needs of students during reading workshop time. The biggest problem that I found with this situation during my first year of teaching was that it was extremely challenging to try and figure out what each single student's personal needs were within the reading workshop. Because as teachers, we have our state common core expectations we have to meet. We also have our grade level expectations we have to meet. We also have, if we have them in an intervention, different things we need to do one-on-one with them. We need to be able to discover every single one of those students' needs. Then after we figure out what those needs are, figuring out to plan for those needs, and then finding resources to meet those needs. That's also, along with the planning, is finding the time to meet with these students to help them get those needs met. With the implementation plan we did for class, I found 3 models that I thought would be sufficient to use within the classroom. Those were the 3-block model, the wiki use in the 21st century literacy classroom, and individualizing instruction for struggling readers. So to go through and kind of give you an idea of what those 3 were, the 3-block model, as it says, it's pretty discrete. There's 3 different steps within this model. So there's a student social emotional well-being, which focuses directly on the student and how they operate inside and outside of the school. But then there's also diversity of learning needs. So that digs into being able to differentiate within your teaching to meet those learning needs of the students. But then also there's the systems and structures of the actual model itself. The wiki use in the 21st century literacy classroom is basically a large framework for evaluation, and with this process it requires a lot of work on the teacher's end of the deal. So if the teacher's not using this appropriately and not effectively using it within the classroom, it's something that's not going to work and it's not going to benefit the students. The last resource I came upon was individualizing instruction for struggling readers, and with this, as you can see, it's doing a survey of interest with the students. So I think right away about interest inventories that you do, usually within that first week of school with your students, figuring out what they're passionate about, what are their interests, like how many people are in their family, what's their background, what's their culture, what resources can you provide them based off their interests to keep them interested in their reading. Also, again, differentiating instruction. So again, that would be making sure that you're meeting those needs of that students. But then the one thing I really liked about this one is that it really embarked confidence and motivation within students. So it kept them moving. It kept them thinking good about themselves, building their confidence, keeping them motivated, keeping them understanding and thinking that they can do it. In the end, I did choose the 3-block model just because I feel like it kind of incorporated all 3 of these models together into one model within itself. So the model, just a couple quick reasons why I chose it. It allows for growth within every single one of the students. So no matter if they're my lowest student in the class, if they're my highest student in the class, if they're my average reading student in class, every single one of those students has that chance for growth with this model. It's not focusing purely on just those low readers or just those average readers. It focuses on each individual student. So it is going to benefit all students within the classroom. And then the other thing that I really liked is it focused on the academics aspect of teaching. It focused on the social aspect. School is a big social ground for our students, especially at my school. And the cultural aspect. The school I teach at is a low-income school. So I have, within the neighborhood and the students that I work with, I have a lot of different cultures and diversity within my classroom. So not only is that diversity culturally, but academically within my classroom. So this 3-block model would be beyond beneficial to my students and my teaching. So when we did our implementing plan, week 1 I was thinking of I'm a very big focuser on building relationships with your students and making sure that they have friendships and that they can see who's a leader, like what's an example of a good leader, what's an example of a bad leader, like which groups to follow, which groups to not follow, what's going to lead you in the right direction. So doing a lot of large group work by far right away at week 1 is huge to me. And then making sure to explore those student interests. Figure out what are they interested in? What are they passionate about? What can I use to help them grow and believe in themselves and stay interested and engaged all the time? For one of the first activities that we would have done within that week was having students work in pairs. So working side by side with someone, learning how to work together with that individual. What steps can they take to problem solve? But then also, after that activity, working in small groups. So how can you work within a small community within your classroom? Week 2, again, working in small groups, building that community. Community is something that I feel is super strong. And this last year being a first-year teacher, I focused purely right away off the bat off of relationships and community, and it definitely paid off in the long run. Having student-teacher conferences within this week, so just getting to know your students better. Sitting down, talking to them, finding out their interests again, besides just that interest inventory, actually like relating to your students, talking to them face to face, letting them trust you, and you showing that you trust them and you want to know more is going to give your students that much more trust in you. And then also beginning to infuse an expectations and inquiry within the activities within your students during this week, just to get them thinking about the structure of the classroom and how those things will be working. Week 3 of implementation, I decided that starting off with group work activity would be a great idea. So small group, large group, varying the different sizes so that students can problem solve the different responsibilities of each person in the group to make sure that everyone's included, to make sure that everyone has a job, to make sure that there's not anyone who is sitting out on the sidelines. We're all team players. There's also an assessment at this point with that activity that includes participation and understanding of the topic that was at stake, and then data collection. Data collection is huge in understanding how your students are growing, where they're at, how you can get them to where they need to go so that you are able to have that mental image, so to say, in front of you of what groups of students you have who are maybe at like a 1, 2, or a 3. And when I say that, I usually categorize my students as a 1. It's like, okay, so they're not understanding this at all. A 2, okay, they're getting it. A 3, they really got it. And a 4, they're masters. They can teach this skill to another person. And then at that point, if my students are masters, I usually have them actually pair up with another student who's almost got it all figured out and teach it to them so that they're continuing to master their skills. Week 4, again, using that data group that I was just kind of talking about to group students, get them into the higher order thinking activities to get them to grow, and then to continue the data tracking, continue to have students working in pairs, working in groups, small groups, large groups, continue to work on the relationships, the friendships, the community, problem solving, huge. When I think about the first 9 weeks of class coming up, because school is about, that's the last week of July, so about a month away. Gradual release is something I do a huge amount of typically. So doing a lot of modeling and then slowly having them work in partners and then slowly having them work in small groups and then large group wise, gradually releasing them into understanding how we're going to go about that business will be very, very good, and I think it'll pay off a lot. Also, making sure to have patience. Like, new school year, you have new students, you have new understandings of how things work, you have new families to work with, new situations. So making sure that I have patience, but also infusing patience into my students so that they begin to understand new situations, and then just learning together. I told my students last year how, being my first year teaching, I have a lot to learn. Now this is my second year teaching. Have I learned a lot already? Yes, but I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to grow. And so showing the students that you're able to learn with them and not just teach them and you know everything, I think is a huge aspect. So continuing to learn on how this model grows, and then I think that by the time I would do this model this year, the following year it'll be even better, and then the year after that even better, and domino effect, just continuing to get stronger and stronger and stronger with the 3-block model. I really believe that I will be infusing so much technology within this next school year. I'm so excited I'm going to try and use it for every single subject. So reading, math, science, social studies, writing especially, instead of using so much of their writing notebooks. I believe that this is going to be the year. I think it's going to be great. So I want to say thank you for this class. Thank you for showing all of the different resources and giving us the time to research and giving us aspects of ways to research different forms of technology to use within the classroom, because I think it's honestly going to benefit not only my students but myself and my teaching, because I feel it's going to save time in me teaching certain things where the students will be able to kind of not only teach themselves but learn in ways through the technology and the software that is on the computer, so that I could teach them other areas and other topics. So I hope you enjoyed.